All right. So, hi. Welcome to Embodied Eating, webinar 5. Today we're going to go through an overeating analysis. And in order to do an overeating analysis, what is really helpful, so overeating analysis is clearly seen. So I like to think about it that we're clearly seeing the events, the thoughts, the emotions, the physical sensations that lead to an episode of overeating. And in order for this to be productive, we need to do it in a way that is non-judgmental and compassionate. So in addition to doing our overeating analysis today, we're going to take the time to practice some compassion for ourselves and for our bodies. All right. So specifically this week, I'm going to have us practice dry brushing, and I'll introduce you to that practice. Oil pulling, which can be a useful tool in a couple of ways. We'll start off with a loving kindness-based body scan, and we'll follow that with a data versus story piece. And I'll give you a little homework assignment that includes some gratitude for the body. And then we'll move on to starting this overeating analysis. All right, so again, on this resources page, I've said this before, this resources page is reminding us of the tools that we have to become more embodied, more present in our daily lives, and more able to be present in our daily life without having to escape through overeating. All right. So we'll start with a loving kindness body scan. And this loving kindness body scan can be helpful when we have critical or judgmental thoughts about our body. It can be helpful when we're feeling physically depleted, and it can be helpful when we're experiencing difficult emotions. So I am going to record this body scan on audio just as well, and I will send you the audio link separately so you have that in case you want to utilize this body scan on your own. And in fact, I would suggest you doing that I'd say 3 to 4 times in the next couple of weeks. So what I'd like you to do right now is to sit comfortably, and if it feels comfortable, close your eyes so we can begin this body scan. So allowing your body to soften. and bringing your awareness to your breath. Noticing the inhale and the exhale. And noticing the breath wherever you experience it most intensely. Feeling the breath in and the breath out. And now, on your next inhale, bring the awareness to the crown of your head. Notice sensations at the top of the head. And on your next breath out, let the crown of the head relax. And now bringing your awareness to that space in between your eyebrows. Noticing what is present there. And on your next breath out, let the forehead, eyebrows, face soften. Now bringing your awareness to your throat and neck, and noticing what sensations are present at the throat and neck. You might feel something, you might feel nothing. You might feel close against the base of your neck. You might feel a tightness or a tiredness in the neck. Just noting what is present. And on your next breath out, visualizing the muscles of the neck relaxing and softening. And bringing your awareness down to your heart, where your heart physically resides. And on the next exhale, imagining the physical muscles and the space around the heart softening and relaxing. And letting the awareness move down to your abdomen. And noting sensations in the abdomen. There might be specific thoughts as you bring your awareness to your abdomen, and just noting what's present. And on your next breath out, having the intention to let the abdomen soften. And now bringing your awareness down to your hips. And noticing sensations at the hips, noting any thoughts. And on your next breath out, allowing relaxation. Bringing the awareness down to the upper thighs. Noting physical sensations, what the upper thighs actually feel like. Noting any thoughts associated with the upper thighs. And then on the next breath out, softening the upper legs. And then letting the awareness go down to the knees, the calves, the ankles, and the feet. Noting physical sensations, thoughts in the knees, ankles, calves, feet. And on your next breath out, allowing the lower legs to soften. And then finally, bringing that awareness back to the shoulders, upper arms, elbows, lower arms, wrists and hands. Noting sensations and thoughts associated with these upper limbs. And with your next breath out, allowing the arms in their entirety to soften. And then in the next couple of breaths, scan your body. Notice any areas of residual tension or strain. And imagine bringing your breath to that area. And as you breathe out, just noting if there's any change in that area. It may stay the same, it may soften, but just noticing if you bring loving breath to that area, what that does in terms of softening, relaxation. And so now, from this more embodied state, bring your awareness back to the breath, where you feel it the most for the next few breaths. Noting the inhale and the exhale. Breathing in, expanding. Breathing out, letting go. Now, bring attention to your hands. Imagine that your hands are beginning to fill up with kindness. More and more kindness is filling your hands. Your hands are full of kindness, caring, warmth, and tenderness. Every cell in your hand, every space in between the cells, every knuckle, every joint, fill with warm, caring kindness radiating from your hands. And now, placing this kind, warm, caring hand over your heart. Notice your breathing. Feel the caring quality of your heart Let it come through your hands. Let all the mental chatter just come and go, coming back to that sense of tenderness and caring. With every breath, feel the warm, tender caring radiating from your heart to your hand, and from your hand to your heart. And now allowing that hand to relax back down. And now taking your left hand, radiating kindness, and bringing that left hand and touching it to your right shoulder. And then taking your right hand and bringing it to your left shoulder, giving yourself a hug. And note the kindness, caring, warmth, and tenderness of this touch. And really feeling into what this touch feels like. Maybe feeling the warmth or coolness of the hand on the arms or shoulders. Maybe feeling the weight of the arms. Maybe noting the inhalation and exhalation of the breath. Maybe noting a sense of calmness in your heart space. Note what's going through your mind. And notice, without judgment, what thoughts are present as you touch yourself with kindness. And now slowly move your hands, still filled with kindness, to your abdomen and allow them to rest. And move with your abdomen as you breathe. The inhale and the exhale. Notice your reaction. Notice thoughts without judgment. And continue to bring your awareness back to the kindness in your hands, the kindness radiating to your abdomen as you sense holding yourself in tenderness. Next, move both of your hands to your thighs. Gently place them wherever is comfortable. Perhaps touching your thighs with a sense of appreciation. Completely relax and allow the tenderness for all the feelings that this may bring up. Tenderly noticing any emotion that arises, any thoughts that arise, holding them with tenderness, caring, and kindness. And now once again, bringing one or both hands over your heart. Note your breath. Feel into that caring quality of your heart Let it come through to your hands. Noting that caring quality, even when mental chatter is present. Bringing awareness to that warmth and caring quality, even when other emotions are present. And now, in the last moments of this meditation, you can continue to rest your hands where they are, or if there's another part of your body that could use a tender, caring touch, move your hand there and continue to rest with a sense of warmth towards yourself as the kindness from your hands radiates into this part of your body. And then slowly bringing your attention back to the room. When you are ready, you can let the hands drop from the heart or from the body part where they're at. You can begin to open your eyes and then take a moment over the next few breaths to consider what this experience was like for you. If you would like, you could journal about it. What did you know during this meditation? Was it difficult? What felt comfortable? What was helpful? All right, so that is the first. That's the first meditation, and this meditation can be helpful for those of us who are judgmental towards our bodies in certain ways. You know, we tend to be judgmental of the abdomen, of the hips. We might each have our own areas that we're judgmental about. And so beginning to bring warmth, kindness, and appreciation to these areas can be really helpful. All right, so that's one exercise I'd like us to practice several times over the next couple of weeks. And as I said, I recorded this as an audio component separately, and I will send that out in an email so you have access to that. All right, the next tool for dealing with critical thoughts is another tool. Last week we talked about noticing the thoughts, the critical thoughts, appreciating them, and then reframing them, negotiating with them and reframing them. And this is another way to work with critical thoughts. So I've given an example here. So when we get overwhelmed, or when an experience comes up that kind of blindsides us sometimes about how we may look, we can have a jumbled reaction. So an example might be, I just tried on my favorite pair of pants and they don't button. I've gained so much weight these past 6 months. I'm totally out of control. So those might be the thoughts that I would have if I tried on a pair of pants that I had before I had my youngest child. Those thoughts may quickly become a story in my mind. And it might be a story that I've been telling myself for years. You know, my youngest is 10 years old. So my drill sergeant story may be, after I've tried on these pair of pants, ugh, I'm gross, I'm fat, I'm never going to look good again. All right, so that drill sergeant story, you will notice the jumbled reaction as well. You will notice there's a lot of judgment there. I am gross, I am fat. You know, that criticism is a judgment. There's a lot of all or nothing. There's never in there, I'll never look good again. We don't know if that's true. That's a story. I'm gross and fat. That's a judgment. That's a critical judgment. What is the data? So if this is your jumbled reaction and this is your story, and we'll just say it's my story now. This is my jumbled reaction. This is my story. What's the data? And the data is beautiful because the data is the truth, right? I have put on 20 pounds in the past year. My stomach is bigger and softer than it used to be. Now, if I lived in Senegal, my story might be different. My sister spent a year in Senegal, and in Senegal, larger women are considered sexy. So if I were in Senegal, my story might be, ooh, my stomach is bigger and softer. I'm really sexy. I'm hot, right? So sticking with the data and not with the story, because the story is an opinion. It's a judgment. It's not the truth. So, from the data, moving to a compassionate, honest response. Compassionate and honest is what's important, because that part of us that's critical, that's a drill sergeant, it doesn't believe in Pollyanna lies like, oh, you look fine, you look fine, you look great, you look great. It's not going to believe that, and it shouldn't believe that, because that's not honesty, right? So a compassionate, honest response might be, I'm larger than I was a year ago. That's why I've begun to shift how I eat. I'm taking better care of myself by consciously, mindfully eating, but it will take time to lose weight. In the meantime, buying flattering new pants is also a way I can take care of myself. So that's compassionate, right? It's not placing a judgment. It's saying, it's being honest. I'm larger than I was a year ago. It acknowledges that I'm taking care of myself because I'm paying attention to how I eat. I am eating more mindfully. And I'm acknowledging that it's going to take time to lose weight. And I may come to know that I want to look the best I can, no matter what weight I'm at. So buying some flattering new pants might be a way for me to take care of myself. So over the next couple of weeks, and you might, over the next couple of weeks, when you notice these extreme critical thoughts, these judgments about your body and what you eat, write them down. And when you have time, begin to journal your own jumbled reactions. the story that you tell yourself, what the data is, and find a compassionate, honest response. When we begin to do this overeating analysis, there can be a tendency to get really critical of ourselves. I'm never going to change. I'm always messing up. And so to be able to look at the data and to find a compassionate, helpful, honest response is actually crucial for making changes in our food patterns. If beating yourself up worked, I would say go for it. Continue with these negative stories. And it doesn't work. And for a lot of us, these negative stories are deeply ingrained. I remember when I was 8 or 10 years old, going to work out with my mom because she was fat, in her words. She was fat and she didn't like the way she looked. She had diet protein shakes in the cupboard. I learned from her that she thought her body was gross, and that's how I learned to relate to my body. So some of these stories are old. They've been with us for a long time. They come from our moms, they come from our friends, they come from culture, and beginning to question the validity of the story is really powerful. All right, so that's a tool I want you to use this week and over the next couple of weeks. All right, a final tool for shifting body judgment. So I'm not saying we're going to get rid of our body judgment. I want us to make the container bigger. You know, there might be thoughts of like, my thighs have cellulite. And if you really feel into your thighs and feel how strong they are and think about how they've carried you for the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years and have walked you to and from college campus, if you're married, have walked you down the aisle. Also, getting grateful for these parts of our bodies and for this body, which has been our vehicle for living out our entire life. So this week, in addition to the automatic judgments we often feel towards our bodies, I want you to write a gratitude letter. Writing a letter of appreciation to your body. Thinking about what it's done for you. And if you have a hard time starting, I've given some prompts. I'm grateful to you for. Without you, I wouldn't be able to. And those other prompts that are there. So taking some time in the next couple of weeks to write this letter and then put it in an envelope and keep it in a safe place. Then take it out and read it, once a week for a month. And I would suggest making a ritual out of it if you can. So maybe a Sunday afternoon, finding a quiet place where you'll have some time to meditate and to watch your thoughts and feelings as you read through this letter. And as you read the letter, just notice how it affects your feelings and how you feel about yourself in general. And if you have a particular part of the body that you struggle with, it might be worth writing a letter just to that part of the body, in addition to this more general letter for the body. All right. Now, these next two slides have mindful eating skills that I am going to begin having us take a few moments to go over in the next several webinars. So we've gone over a lot of mindful eating skills, a lot of embodied eating skills, and we're not doing mindful eating exercises right now, and I want to use these next two slides as a way to help maintain some of your awareness on the importance of continuing to eat mindfully and to practice mindfulness or embodiment. So this chart is something you could fill out once a week. So for the past week, how often have you noticed when you were physically hungry? Right? So when you're doing your overeating analysis, you might feel down on yourself and say, oh, I overate 3 days ago, and then I overate 6 days ago. And in the bigger picture, I've been noticing more often when I'm physically hungry. That means I'm attuned to my body. That means I'm moving in the right direction. And although I overate a couple of times, there were several times when I stopped eating when I began to feel comfortably full. One thing that I don't know that I have specifically said this one. So 3, I stopped eating when I noticed I wasn't tasting the food as much. And again, I'll just say quickly, once you stop tasting the food, especially if it's a treat, put it down. That's a perfect cue for putting the food down. Why put it in your body if you're eating it as a treat and you're not tasting it? I ate a meal where I was able to experience each bite. I stopped eating something because it tasted too sweet, too fatty, or too salty. When people start to eat mindfully sometimes, they notice that they're eating foods that they don't actually like. And that can be, sometimes that's a little bit distressing. So if you notice that you're not liking a food, put it down. I decided not to eat a tempting food, thinking you can have it another time. So you may have had periods where you overate, and you may have had other times where you didn't eat a tempting food because you weren't hungry. I ate something that I like a lot without eating too much of it. I really let myself enjoy and savor all the flavors and textures in a meal. I ate moderately at a social gathering. I added more healthy foods to my regular diet. I reduced the amount of unhealthy or more processed foods in my diet. I decided not to take a second helping because I was already satisfied. And I ate a smaller portion of a treat or highly processed food that I really wanted. The second page here has behaviors to do less often. So this might be where you acknowledge that you overate because you were upset about something. Working with that all or nothing thinking. I ate something, you know, that's basically a treat, and I kept on eating it because I'd already blown it, rather than eating it until you no longer taste it and then setting it down, or choosing to stop once you realized you're emotionally eating. I ate because I was procrastinating. I finished everything on my plate without checking to see if I was satisfied. Boredom is a reason that we eat. Um, Checking out, eating mindlessly. Some of us check out or numb ourselves by eating mindlessly. I spent too much time worrying about my weight. That's another way to check out and avoid life, is to worry about weight, appearance. And I weighed myself out of worry and concern rather than just to get data. Other mindful lifestyles to do more often would be, like I meditated, right? 10 or 20 minutes. I weighed myself for wisdom rather than to police myself. I built more activity into my day purposefully. While exercising or being more active, I appreciated my body for what it can do. And this is where that meditation is going to come in handy. And I allowed myself adequate sleep. So I will also send this, these two slides as a PDF file, so you can print it out and fill this out over the next several weeks. All right, so last week or 2 weeks ago, I had you begin to look at what some of your triggers are. And in beginning to look at triggers for overeating helps us to figure out, once we can name what our triggers are, we can better handle them. Once we have more awareness, that gives us of what our internal triggers are, we can develop more options for dealing with what's happening internally and externally, and we will have a better ability to make a choice about how we choose to respond. So here are some common external triggers for food. Advertisements that show people eating, baked goods, problem foods that are available certain times of day. That evening after work is often a time where people overeat. Afternoon during work can be a time where people want excess energy to help push them through the afternoon. Certain activities, some people eat while watching TV or while driving. Family gatherings, yes. And, you have your own external triggers for eating. So, and you've been writing them down for the past couple of weeks, so you might know what those are. All right. Internal triggers. Childhood associations. For years, Girl Scout cookies were a trigger for me because growing up, I thought they were amazing. I saw my mom eat a lot of them, and I used to think like an entire sleeve of cookies was a serving, and it wasn't until I started more embodied eating that I was able to not eat as many, and then finally realize, actually, I don't like the taste of these. I don't want them. So we have these strong childhood associations with some foods, and beginning to Notice that allows us to begin to change our relationship with those foods. Huge. We've already talked about chronic stress a lot. Same thing with chronic sleep deprivation. And that's why I have allowing yourself to get enough sleep of that mindfulness behaviors. Sleep, enough sleep, crucial for being able to make choices. Fatigue is an internal trigger, either from sleep deprivation or depression. So if you have depression or you've experienced depression, it's really important to address that, because that fatigue makes it difficult to have enough energy to make the choice to not eat. It's easy to eat. It's harder to more directly address some of our needs. So if depression is an issue, really working with that piece. Same thing with anxiety, anger, hunger. If you let yourself get too hungry, it can trigger overeating. Loneliness, negative feelings and thoughts about your body, those harsh self-critical thoughts, that all or nothing thinking. Well, if I've had one cookie, I might as well eat the whole sleeve. I have to eat the whole sleeve. Catastrophic beliefs. I've eaten one cookie, I've blown it, I'm a failure, nobody likes me. That doesn't do good things for, managing food. Boredom is another big factor. Chronic pain or pain in general can be a real trigger for overeating or craving foods. And then again, of course, we all have our own particular triggers. So when we do an overeating assessment, we want it to be compassionate and clear. That's why I've started with that kindness meditation. That's why we're doing the gratitude letter to the body. So compassionate and clear. So this week in your food diary, continue to track these external and internal triggers. When you do eat in an unhealthy way or overeat, take time to compassionately, clearly assess what led to this eating incident. So the way to do it, to do a thorough analysis, is to identify like a recent overeating incident. So like one that's happened within the past week or so. And then what you do is you identify the incident, and then, so then you work backwards from the incident by exploring what happened right before the incident, and then what happened right before that, and right before that. And usually you work backwards about 2 to 5 days. So here's a reminder to see clearly what's present without judgment. So The Guest House by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So no matter what is present, compassionately, openly accepting it. And I love this first line. This being human is a guest house. Our body, our consciousness is embodied in our body. We wouldn't be here without this body. Part of this embodied experience is having all of these emotions, the ups, the downs. It's part of what it means to be living. So I have a colleague who says the opposite of depression isn't happiness. The opposite of depression is vitality. It doesn't matter if it's a good emotion, a bad emotion, a good event, a bad event. What matters is that we're present for it and that we experience it. That is vitality. That is what it means to be truly living. So I'm like I'm hammering the nail on the head over and over. Gratitude, 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 clear seeing, clear seeing, clear seeing. All right, so now let's go to that overeating analysis. So I'm going to use an example. My brother recently got married, and what I did was from that event, I took things that were going on inside, and I took things from other people, and I just made a conglomeration. So we'll say I ate too much at my brother's wedding reception. Okay. Well, we begin to work backwards, right? Well, what happened right before the reception? Okay, I was at my brother's wedding. One of my brothers, the one who wasn't being married, was being sarcastic and rude. His words stung, and I was aware of being irritated with him and his wife. Okay, what happened right before that? Earlier in the day, my 16-year-old daughter was feeling really down, and she was responsible for decorating cupcakes for the wedding. I felt frustrated that I, quote unquote, had to help support her mood and help her with the cupcakes. All right, what happened right before that? My husband was working that weekend and wasn't available. I felt disappointed and lonely. I had the thought, why is he abandoning me? Okay, what happened right before that? Well, earlier in the week, instead of my usual exercise, I was preparing for my brother's wedding. I was an officiant, so I had work to do with that. The stress of having to do the wedding perfectly, again, belief, right? I had to do the wedding perfectly, made it difficult for me to sleep. And we had extra cupcakes at home that were up on the counter during the week as we prepared for my brother's wedding. My daughter was doing that. All right. So that's the chain of events that led to me eating more than I wanted at my brother's reception. Okay, so now I'm going to break it down. What thoughts, behaviors, and emotions were present that contributed to my overeating? Well, I felt stung or hurt, which is an emotion. I was irritated with my brother, emotion. Frustrated, emotion. Had to. That was a belief that I had to be in charge, take charge of the wedding. So it was a thought, I must. I was disappointed, emotion. I felt lonely, emotion. I was having a thought, why is he abandoning me? That's mind reading. I'm assuming that he was intentionally abandoning me, right? Not checking it out. Didn't exercise that week, which was a behavior. Stress, which was an emotion, and had some thoughts with it. Part of that thought, part of that thinking pattern is it has to be perfect, right? So there's some all or nothing thinking there. There's probably some other types of thoughts there too, like some critical thoughts, like I have to be perfect to be okay. It affected my sleep, so I wasn't sleeping well. And we had extra sweets at home, which is really like a surroundings, but it's something that I could have had a little more control over. So if you look at all of these links, in retrospect, it makes sense that I had more to eat than I wanted to, because there were a number of places where I was vulnerable. I wasn't taking care of myself as well. I wasn't exercising. My sleep was disrupted. Um, my emotions were intense. And I had some distorted thought patterns. So it makes sense. And we're not going to have time to get to this today, but next week I'm going to come back to, and I'll just say it now. In retrospect, what would have been helpful is if, one, if I had continued to exercise regardless, I could have spoken with my husband and enlisted his support. We are a family. I would like some help with our daughter. I would like support with our daughter. I could have done a lot of things differently. With my brother, I could tend to the feeling hurt and stung. This is a brother whom I've had issues with, who we've had a stressful relationship for a long time. So I could anticipate that something would come up. And so knowing that I know how to care for myself, I could possibly say something to him if I wanted. So, there are different ways I could have dealt with it. And in fact, given all of these stressful emotions that are coming up, you probably could argue that I actually needed to exercise more and take more time to take care of myself. And that definitely could have been through enlisting support of husband. All right, so that's specific to this situation. I'm going to give suggestions for general situations so that you have them at your fingertips when you do your overeating analysis. All right. So first is external triggers. So one, I had these cupcakes on the counter all week, right? So avoiding the triggers, cupcakes on the counter, restaurants that you drive by, walking past a bakery, avoiding the trigger is an option sometimes. Take a different route. That's what we tell people who are with substance abuse, especially in the beginning. Take a different route to work if there's a convenience store where you typically like to buy alcohol. So for us, avoiding the triggers, I could have put the cupcakes downstairs. External triggers that we don't have so much control over, if we're out in public and we see other people eating, like at the wedding, you could take a couple of minutes to check in to see whether you want to eat or not. When there's food present, you can take a couple of minutes to do a hunger scan and eat only if hungry. This is what I ended up doing. I ate a small portion, noted that I was eating for comfort and emotional eating, and then was able to stop. Focus on taste satiety. So I did allow myself to have part of what my daughter made, and really allowed myself to taste it and enjoy it because she made it, and then stop because actually, it's not my favorite. Have alternative foods available. So if you're, if you're going to be at an event where there's a set menu, you could find out the menu in advance and plan accordingly. And actually, I did some of that at the wedding. All right. The rest of the triggers are internal triggers. And today, we'll get through the thoughts. Next week, we'll do emotions and physical sensations. So we've got these self-critical thoughts, and we already have this data versus story that we talked about earlier today. We have that tool that we used last week of noting the critical voice, appreciating the positive intention of the critical voice, negotiating with it, and finding a reframe. So these are things you can do with like self-critical voices. This judgment about the body, really doing like that loving kindness meditation that we did today, where you feel into the body, like physically feel the body. That gets us out of our thoughts, and it helps us to notice what our body is doing for us. So doing that, kindness-based body scan. The judgments may still be there, but the more you focus into the experience of the body, and that kindness, bringing kindness to the body, the more the judgments will ease. Sometimes we have thoughts or obsessions about certain foods, like this food is bad. If I eat one, I'm going to eat it all. Is this thought true? Is it helpful? What's a more helpful true thought? These all or nothing statements. So for me, this week, or with my brother's wedding, it was like, I have to be perfect. If I eat one, I have to eat them all. These types of thoughts, just noticing them without engaging them can be helpful. And so actually, for me with the wedding, what would have been helpful up front is for me, like once we had made commitments about what we would do for the wedding, we were obliged to do it and do it well. But that this perfectionism, it dovetails with my caretaker. So noting to myself, I don't have to take care of everything. I get to set limits. I get to have boundaries. And thinking about it at the beginning rather than as it culminates. Shoulding and musting. I must do this for my family. Again, that caretaker piece, like I have to be super involved. And so these are all thoughts that can be internal triggers. Letting us have the thought without engaging it, acknowledging that drill sergeant, thanking it, and trying a more compassionate approach just for the next 5 minutes. The drill sergeant probably doesn't want to give you total control, but for 5 minutes for a day, it can. And then, we did that values worksheet. So asking, are the thoughts that I'm having, do they help me attain my goals? Is it in line with my values? And if it's not, find the data and come up with thoughts that are true, compassionate, and in line with your values. All right, so that's where we're going to stop today in terms of going through the overeating analysis. Next time, we'll deal with some emotions that are internal triggers. We'll deal with physical sensations. And actually, some of what we did today with the fatigue, that loving kindness, and even with pain and low energy, that loving kindness meditation can be helpful with all of those physical sensations. All right. We're running late. So I want to talk about oil pulling. Anthony. No, hang on. Oh, no. Okay. All right, I'm going to do oil pulling. I'm going to do stop share. And we're going to, I'm going to figure out how to make myself big here. There. Okay. There we go. There. All right. So the last thing I want to go over is oil pulling. And I'm doing this today because I think it's helpful when we know we're not hungry, um, and we're done eating for the day. It can help us to stay done eating for the day, and it can also be a really nourishing routine. So oil pulling, I have some olive oil here. What you do with oil pulling is you take about like 2 tablespoons of olive oil and you put it in your mouth and you swish it around for about 5 minutes. And I would suggest doing this at the end of the day, swishing around the olive oil. And then when you're done, you'll spit it out in a cup. And then what you'll do is you'll take some water and you'll take a sip of water, rinse it out, and spit that out a couple times as well. Oil pulling does a couple of really beautiful things. It's an Ayurvedic tool, and it helps to reduce plaque and bacteria in the gums. It helps to, speed up the recovery of like cold sores and things like that in the mouth. Helps to keep the teeth whiter. And part of why I like it, that oil can feel really nourishing and nurturing to the mouth. And so it's a way to take care of ourselves that way. And then it has, like if you know you're done eating for the day and you do it at the end of the day and then you brush your teeth, for those of us who tend to overeat in the evening, it can serve as a little physical reminder that we're done eating for the day, because it'll be like, oh, I'm not really hungry, but I could eat something, but oh, I've already done my oil pulling and I've brushed my teeth. It's not worth it to eat. So I really do suggest trying oil pulling. I would say like try it for a week, every evening, and see if you like it. See if it's helpful. If it's helpful, great, stick with it. If not, you don't have to. All right, so let me go back to my screen. All right, and next time we'll do dry brushing. Here are some other nourishing tools. So we've talked about oil massage before. We've done the loving kindness body scan. Practice the oil pulling. Yeah, and dispose of it in the garbage. Don't put it down the sink. Don't put it in the tub. It will gum up your drains. Definitely put it in the garbage. All right, and then practices for this week include that loving kindness body scan. I'll send you the audio recording of that. Complete that data versus drill sergeant story when you've got self-critical thoughts. Write a letter of gratitude to your body. Practice oil pulling. Maintain that food diary as a reminder, even if you overeat, go back to your regular eating. Avoid restricting. And when you've noticed that you've overeaten, what is helpful is to begin to do that overeating analysis in a non-judgmental way, so you can begin to see your triggers and what you need to do to address some of these issues. All right. So that's it for today. I wish you an embodied 2 weeks and embodied eating. All right, take care.